Hello everyone, welcome to Anime no Mi, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. The sword Yoru is an extremely powerful tool and weapon in the right hands, and is one of the most powerful swords in the entire world of One Piece, owned by the current world's greatest swordsman, Dracula Mihawk. Now Zoro and Mihawk have a certain rivalry due to the fact that Zoro wants to own that title that belongs to Mihawk, a rivalry in which Mihawk wants to face Zoro in the future at his best when he's ready to inherit the title. And one has to wonder, could that be a confrontation that would make Mihawk give his sword to Zoro if the swordsmen of the Straw Hat crew manage to defeat him in the final confrontation and decide who the next greatest swordsman in the world is? So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possibility of Zoro getting Yoru through the final confrontation of these two great swordsmen and how strong he could be with that sword. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like and even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and keeps motivating us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, Mihawk currently owns one of the 12 supreme grade swords, Yoru, also known as the Black Blade, as his main weapon. Now Yoru has a very specific shape and is quite different from the conventional swords that we've seen in the world of One Piece, really being the only one with that style in the entire work of our story. This sword has an incredible potential for cutting at long distances, and if it were ever to belong to Zoro in the future, we wonder, would this be a sword that Zoro could use with his own style? After all, this sword is very different from others we've seen. It has a single-edged black curved blade in the shape of a Latin cross, with a golden crossguard decorated with red cabochons that are blue and green in the anime, and a hilt wrapped in bandages with a cabochon particularly large at its end. We also don't know exactly how Mihawk ever acquired the sword, as it is one of the most powerful swords in the One Piece universe. But we do know that Mihawk always uses it in fights where he needs to use his full potential. When he accepts challenges for his title, Mihawk only draws this blade to those who have enough spirit to earn his respect, or at least enough power to pose a threat. Otherwise, his Kokatana is enough. Having lost a rival in Shanks, Mihawk now shares his rivalry with Zoro and is prepared to wait as long as it takes for Zoro to become strong enough to defeat him. To that end, Mihawk has watched Zoro's progression and is delighted with Zoro's acts, such as when Zoro earned his first bounty, demonstrating that Mihawk is pinning his hopes on Zoro being the one to defeat him in the future. After the Battle of Marineford, when the Straw Hat crew was scattered to the four winds all across the planet, Zoro bowed to Mihawk and requested training from the world's greatest swordsman in order to surpass him in the future and obtain his title. Now Mihawk initially rejected this request and berated the young swordsman for not being able to defeat his enemies, as well as having a fully worn out sword and not seeming to care about his own weapons. Mihawk told Zoro that he should have found something more valuable than just his ambition to make the request. He needed something that would demonstrate that he was really willing to become more powerful than just a single goal or gain some title. But when finally seeing Zoro's full determination, Mihawk accepted the request and ordered Perona to fix Zoro so that training could begin, because he had been very injured from the previous confrontations that had happened on Sabaody Archipelago. During the training, Mihawk was an extremely strict teacher when he was Zoro's master swordsman during the 2-year time skip, using quite radical and difficult methods for Zoro's evaluation to be efficient. When teaching Zoro to use haki, he forbade him to drink alcohol until he had completely mastered infusing his swords with armament haki, so he would keep his mind clear and focused on his goal. After this arduous training, Zoro left to rejoin the Straw Hats and continue his adventure in the crew of the future King of the Pirates, still carrying that goal of defeating Mihawk to obtain his title. And for his part, Mihawk has demonstrated several times that he is just waiting for his final confrontation with Zoro, a confrontation that he feels will be more intense and rewarding than any of his past confrontations with Shanks. Because ultimately, his old rival didn't have the goal of becoming the greatest swordsman in the world. Shanks just wanted to have fun with the clashes. However, Zoro's goals are something he intends to accomplish at all costs. So this upcoming fight against Zoro has Mihawk quite excited, which means the final fight between these two swordsmen could be something quite special. There's even the possibility, even if it is remote, that Mihawk will give his Yoru sword to Zoro after the end of this fight, allowing Zoro to get one of the most powerful swords in the world of One Piece. A sword that would not only carry a story, but would also allow Zoro to pass on Mihawk's legacy over the years, remaining the greatest swordsman in the world for many years to come, until some other swordsman comes along to challenge him for the title. However, Yoru does not match Zoro's fighting style because he uses a 3-sword style one in each hand and one in his mouth, and these swords are normal katana-sized, allowing Zoro to use them much more consistently. Yoru, on the other hand, is an extremely large sword, being a sword that has to be used with two hands, making it impossible for Zoro to use it in his mouth or in just one of his hands because of its large size and potentially even the unusual weight, especially for a sword. As a supreme grade sword, Yoru is among the strongest and highest quality swords ever created, being considered a suitable weapon for the greatest swordsman in the world. Because it's also a black blade and potentially the strongest in the world, it's even durable enough that not even a dinosaur stepping on it would make it bend a millimeter, being practically an indestructible weapon. Through Mihawk's unrivaled swordsmanship, Yoru produces immense power, with its owner easily splitting large structures, from a war galleon to a massive ice glacier with just a single swing of the blade. Yoru's strikes unleash incredibly potent shockwaves of compressed air, and these waves even resemble greenish energy waves that can travel long distances while retaining its full cutting power, even from hundreds of meters away. However, while potentially carrying phenomenal strength, Yoru is still gentle enough for Mihawk to deflect the horse of bullets aimed at him with just a flick of the blade and send incredibly accurate, well-placed flying slashes that could present a threat from any distance. This is despite Yoru's great weight, inferred from its immense size, as Mihawk effortlessly wields the sword with one and even two hands, as if it were a mere extension of his arms. Now, Zoro does have a level of physical strength similar to, or even greater than Mihawk's, because he spent his entire youth training his strength to become all the more stronger, which means he could do the same moves as Mihawk if he were able to obtain Yoru after defeating him. But another thing we have to consider is that Zoro did manage to obtain an incredibly powerful sword during the Wano arc, a sword with great evolutionary potential that could even become a sword with a supreme grade if Zoro ever managed to turn it black and reach the full potential of this sword. Enma is currently one of the 21 great grade swords, and it's said that this sword will be able to evolve further, which means that Zoro could potentially have two supreme grade swords in the future if he managed to evolve Enma and obtain Yoru. Enma was forged by the great blacksmith named Shimotsuki Kozaburo, a man who resided in Wano country, and until 20 years ago, Enma had been wielded by Kazuki Oden along with his other sword, the Ame no Habakiri. In Oden's hands, both blades became the only swords known to date that have ever had the ability to hurt Kaido, something that Yoru and the other supreme grade swords could do, although we've never seen this possibility in action. As a masterwork of the legendary swordsmith Shimotsuki Kozaburo, and one of the 21 great grade swords, Enma ranks among the finest swords in the world, with Kozuki Hiyori deeming it a worthy replacement even for the legendary Shusui. Kozuki Sukiyaki even described Enma as being able to cut to the very depths of hell, paralleling his twin sword Ame no Habakiri being able to cut through heaven itself. However, Enma has much greater power than the Ame no Habakiri sword, because Kozaburo himself considered Enma his finest work and compared all his other creations, including the Wado Ichimonji, to that sword. Enma has also been used to confront two supreme grade swords during the past, proving to be a sword that borders on almost the same level as a supreme grade sword. It just needs a powerful swordsman in order to wield it. Through Enma, Oden had already managed to confront the Mura Kumogiri, wielded by the great pirate Edward Newgate, also known as Whitebeard, as well as the Ace Sword, which was wielded by the great king of the pirates, Goldie Roger. Enma also has the distinct characteristic of taking its wielder's haki, also known as Ryo in Wano, and it does it in excessive amounts, slicing way more than often intended. But this could be a perfect match for Zoro, because we now know that he has the ability to use all three types of haki, giving Zoro the possibility to not only use the full potential of the sword, but even perhaps reaching the point of being able to evolve it. By having this affinity for haki, Enma created the ability to absorb the haki from its user, but this also made it so the sword is only able to be used by a very few number of people in the world. We can see that Enma does have a black sheath, very similar to Yoru's, but we've also seen that Yoru is already a black blade without having to apply haki to the weapon. So this means that the two swords do have a certain similarity, and they would become all the more identical after Zoro managed to make Enma become a supreme grade sword by turning the blade black. So as we can see, if Zoro managed to acquire Yoru after his victory against Mihawk, it really would make him the greatest swordsman in the world. With three immensely powerful swords in his possession, Zoro could then wait for someone worthy to defeat him, so he could then pass on his swords to the next generation. So with all that said, my friends, we'd now love to know what you think about it. Do you think if Zoro defeated Mihawk, he would actually earn the right to wield Enma? Or would Zoro refuse because he already has great swords and he already has his own plan for his sword style? Next, do you think that Yoru is the symbol of the greatest swordsman in the world, or it just happens to be a great blade because it's in the hands of the greatest swordsman in the world? Let us know what you think about all that in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching the video, especially those of you who've stayed with us to the very end. Be sure to comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. Hope to see you all in our next video, and let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.